At 4:17 on a Friday afternoon, Cal Whitaker turned the key on his Case IH combine and heard the most expensive sound in harvest. Click, not a crank, not a cough, not even a half-turn from the starter. Just one clean click from the relay, and then the cab went black again. The yield monitor was dead. The armrest display was dead. The engine controller did not wake up. Outside the cab, 112 acres of corn still stood in a cold Nebraska wind, and the rain was already moving east across the forecast map. Cal sat there for 10 seconds, with his hand still on the key. Then he said the one thing every farmer says when a machine dies in the wrong week. No, not today. The combine was a 2019 Case IH8250 axial flow. It had been running clean all afternoon. No warning lights, no codes, no loss of power. Then just before the monitors went black, Cal had caught a faint smell. Not smoke, not fuel. Something sharper, warm plastic. He wrote that down on the back of a seed receipt, because his father had taught him never to trust memory during harvest. At 4:31, he called Tri-County, Case IH. A service manager named Brad pulled up the machine file and listened while Cal described the dead displays, the clicking relay, and the missing power to the engine controller. Brad did not ask about the smell. He did not ask which connector had been wet, which panel had collected chaff, or whether the failure had come all at once. He said, "That sounds like the cab to engine harness." Cal asked, "Can you send somebody tonight?" Brad said the first diagnostic opening was Monday at 11 a.m. Cal looked through the windshield at the field. "Brad, I have corn standing, and weather on Tuesday." Brad paused long enough to sound sorry. Then he gave Cal the number. The full harness was $5,200. Labor was 13.4 hours. Road call, shop supplies, programming and diagnostic time brought the estimate to $7,280. And because the part was not on the shelf, the earliest real repair window was 9 days out. Cal repeated it back slowly. $7,280 and 9 days, because one machine went dark. Brad said, "That is the supported repair." That phrase sat in the cab like a second failure. The supported repair. Cal thanked him, hung up, and climbed down the ladder. His wife, June, was already standing beside the service truck when he got back to the yard. She had the farm notebook open against the hood. "How bad?" Cal took off his cap. Full harness. Over $7,000. Earliest diagnostic Monday. Maybe 9 days before it runs. June looked past him toward the west field. "That corn won't wait 9 days." "I know." "Call Ray Madsen." Cal frowned. "Ray can weld, but this isn't welding." "Not Ray," June said. "His granddaughter." Cal almost laughed, because it sounded like desperation wearing work boots. "Lena is 15. June turned one page in the notebook. "Lena placed second in state FFA ag mechanics last spring. Said she rebuilt a planter rate controller on their kitchen table. He said she carries a meter in her school backpack." "June." "She reads wiring diagrams for fun, Cal." "That combine cost more than our first farm." "And right now," June said, It is a red shed ornament with 112 acres watching it. Cal stared at the notebook. Then he called Ray. Ray answered from a grain truck. Cal told him the symptoms. Dead cab. Relay click. No engine controller. Dealer wanted full harness. Ray was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Did you smell anything before it quit?" Cal lifted his head. Warm plastic for 5 minutes before. Ray covered the phone and said something to someone nearby. Then a younger voice came on. "Mr. Whitaker?" "Yes." "This is Lena Madsen." "Lena." "Did the smell come before the monitors dropped, or after?" "Before." "How long before?" "Maybe 4 minutes." "Then don't let anybody pull that harness yet." Cal looked at June. Lena kept going. Warm plastic before total controller loss usually means one high-resistance terminal got hot enough to open. The harness is probably not bad. The path is bad at one connector. Cal waited for the catch. There was none. "I can be there at 7:30 tomorrow morning, if that is okay," Cal asked. "What do you need?" "A meter, a pin tool, a wiring print, and permission to be slow." That last part surprised him. "Slow?" "Yes, sir. The expensive mistakes happen when people hurry through electrical work." Saturday morning came gray and cold. At 7:26, Ray's old white Dodge pulled into the yard with Lena in the passenger seat. She stepped out wearing a blue FFA jacket over a brown hoodie, faded jeans tucked into muddy rubber boots, and a black tool roll under one arm. She did not look dramatic. She looked awake. Her hair was pulled back in a tight braid, pencil behind one ear, and a red binder pressed against her ribs. Cal met her by the pickup. "Morning, Lena." "Morning, Mr. Whitaker." Ray climbed out slower and nodded toward the binder. She printed the harness section at midnight. Lena corrected him without looking up. 11:42. Cal asked, "Where did you get it?" "Our FFA chapter has access to the Ag Equipment Training Archive through the school shop program. It does not give us dealer software, but it gives connector views, pinouts, and harness routing for common training units. This model is in there." "How much does that cost?" $25 a year to be in the chapter," Lena said, "and a teacher who knows where to look." That line landed harder than Cal expected. $25 to find the map. $7,280 to replace the road. They drove to the field with Lena in the back seat, already marking the binder with sticky notes. At the combine, she did not climb straight into the cab. She walked around it once. She checked the lower right service panel. She looked at the chaff shelf under the cab. She touched the loom where it ran along the frame, but only with the back of her fingers. Then she stopped. There. Cal followed her gaze. A bundle of wires disappeared behind a dust-packed bracket below the cab floor. Nothing looked broken. Nothing looked burned. But there was a dark, sticky line on the corrugated loom, where melted grease had caught chaff. Lena pointed at it. "That is not dirt." Ray smiled a little. Cal did not. He had missed it. The dealership had not been there to miss it, but he had walked past that panel twice the night before. Lena unrolled her tools on the step, a Klein meter, a continuity buzzer she had built in shop class, 2 pin extractors, a flashlight, a tiny brass brush, a pack of terminal seals, and a sandwich bag labeled Deutsch DT pins. Cal asked, "You brought pins?" "Yes, sir." "For this machine?" "For the connector family. The machine is not magic. It is circuits and weather." Ray looked at Cal. "She says that when adults get mystical." Lena ignored him and opened the binder. "The controller needs clean 12-volt reference at connector C14. If that reference is missing, the cab wakes halfway and dies. That matches your relay click. We are going to prove whether power stops before the controller or inside it." Cal asked, "How long?" "If it is the connector, I think it is. Under 2 hours. If I am wrong, longer." She paused. "And if I cannot prove it, I will say so." Those 9 words were the first thing all week that sounded honest. Lena started at the battery posts. 12.6 volts. She checked the ground strap. Good. She checked the relay output. Good. Then she moved along the harness, one connector at a time, comparing each reading to the printed pinout. She did not guess. She did not tap the loom and hope. She did not say probably and reach for a bigger part. Every 8 or 9 minutes, she made a pencil mark in the binder. At the first connector, power was good. At the second, power was good. At the third, power arrived, but did not leave clean. Lena lay on her back under the cab, one boot hooked over the step, flashlight between her teeth. At 9:08, she said, "Found it." Cal climbed onto the lower platform. Ray handed up the flashlight, released a gray 12-pin connector, and turned it so Cal could see inside. Cavity B7. Cal saw nothing at first. Then the light caught one tiny terminal. It was dull brown instead of brass. The plastic around it had just started to glaze. A bead of old dielectric grease had run down the connector face and hardened with dust stuck inside it. Lena clipped the meter lead to the terminal and touched the other probe to the harness side. The meter read 5.1 ohms. Then she tested the terminal beside it. 0.03. She looked up. "This pin is 170 times worse than its neighbor." Cal did not speak. Lena said, "The controller was not dead. The switchboard was not dead. The machine was waiting for voltage that could not get through this one terminal." "One pin?" "One pin." "And the harness?" "The harness is fine." Cal leaned against the tire. The tire was taller than Lena. The quote was taller than both of them. Lena set the connector on a clean rag and worked like a person handling evidence. She photographed the pin. She extracted it. She showed Cal the corrosion line where moisture had crept past the seal. She cleaned the cavity. She replaced the terminal and seal. She put fresh dielectric grease on every terminal in that connector, not just the failed one. The parts came out of 3 tiny bags: a terminal, a seal, grease, $8.70. At 9:31, Lena latched the connector, wiped her hands, and stepped down. "Mr. Whitaker, try the key." Cal climbed into the cab. For a second, he did not turn it, but he heard the click too many times. Then he turned the key. The armrest display lit first, then the yield monitor. Then every warning light came alive in a clean self-test sweep. The engine controller clicked once. The starter turned. The big diesel caught on the 3rd revolution and settled into an idle that sounded better than church bells. Cal sat still with his hand on the throttle. Below him, Lena smiled once, quickly, like she was trying not to show it too much. Ray slapped the ladder rail. June, who had arrived in the farm pickup without anyone noticing, both hands over her mouth. Cal opened the cab door. "Lena, what do I owe you?" She shook her head. "Nothing, sir. Chapter community service rules. I can accept parts reimbursement if the advisor signs it, but I cannot charge labor. Then I will pay the chapter. The chapter takes donations. How much is your fundraiser short this year?" Lena looked at Ray. Ray looked away, which answered before she did. $5,200, she said. Cal stared at her. The harness part was $5,200. "Yes, sir." He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Then he said, "That is where the money is going." Lena blinked. "Mister, that is the whole shortfall." "No, that is the part I did not need." She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, "That is a different kind of repair." Cal nodded. "Yes, it is." By Sunday night, the combine had cut 46 more acres. By Monday after supper, Cal had finished the west field. At 8:12 Tuesday morning, the first rain hit the shop roof while the combine sat inside, clean and fueled. The corn Lena's $8 repair saved came to just over 21,000 bushels. At the elevator price that week, it represented a little more than $100,000 of crop that did not spend 3 extra days under rain. Cal did not tell that number around town, because farmers do not like sounding lucky. But he wrote it in the notebook. 112 acres saved, 21,168 bushels. Rain Tuesday, Terminal B7, $8.70. And under that, June wrote one sentence. The map was cheaper than the mystery. The story got around anyway. It always does. By Wednesday morning, 3 men at the co-op had decided Cal was reckless for letting a 15-year-old touch a combine harness. By noon, 2 of them had asked Ray if Lena could look at their grain cart scale wiring. By Friday, Brad from Tri-County Case IH called Cal. A story that made the dealership sound worse than Cal had actually said. Brad kept his voice professional. "Cal, I understand you got the machine running." "I did. With outside electrical work. With diagnostic work. Those harnesses are not designed for unauthorized repair." Cal looked through the shop window at the combine. "Brad, the harness was not repaired. A terminal was replaced. That can still create liability. The terminal was replaced to the connector specification, documented, photographed, and tested. The chapter advisor signed the service form. Ray witnessed it. I have before and after readings." Brad went quiet. Cal added, "You quoted me a full harness without seeing the machine." "We gave the supported path based on symptoms." "No," Cal said. "You gave me the expensive path based on symptoms. A 15-year-old gave me the tested path based on the machine." That ended the call faster than Cal expected. He did not hate Brad. That was important. Brad was not the villain in Cal's mind. He was a man inside a system that had learned how to sell certainty before it had earned it. Lena had done the opposite. She brought doubt to the field. Then she measured until the doubt had nowhere left to stand. 2 weeks later, The FFA chapter held its fall supper in the high school ag shop. There were folding tables between welding booths, crockpots plugged into orange extension cords, and a row of freshman jackets hanging on hooks by the door. Cal and June came with a check in an envelope. The advisor, Mrs. Hanley, called Lena to the front, but did not make the moment too big. Good teachers know when praise can crush a quiet kid. She simply said, "For applying classroom skill to real community need, and for proving the value of careful diagnosis, Lena Madsen is receiving this year's service award." Lena walked up in the same blue jacket. This time, everyone clapped. Ray clapped the loudest. Cal waited until the room settled before handing Mrs. Hanley the envelope. The amount was $5,200, enough to cover the chapter's travel, contest registration, and the replacement meters Mrs. Hanley had been trying to buy for 2 years. Mrs. Hanley looked at the check, then at Cal. He said, "The dealer wanted that money for copper I didn't need. I would rather spend it on students who know how to test copper before replacing it." That was the line people remembered, but it was not the line Cal remembered. Later, when the supper was over and the ag shop smelled like chili, welding dust, and floor wax, Lena walked over holding a small notebook. "Mr. Whitaker?" "Yes." "I wrote something down." She turned the notebook around. It said, "The machine was not saved by being cheap. It was saved by being understood." Cal read it twice. Then he handed it back. "Keep that one." Lena nodded. "I will." That winter, Cal changed the way he looked at every machine on the farm. Not because he stopped using dealers. He still needed them. Every farmer does. But he stopped confusing a quote with a diagnosis. A quote is a price for a path someone already chose. A diagnosis is the work of proving which path is real. And once you understand that difference, a dead combine in a cornfield does not look quite the same. It might still be expensive. It might still be urgent. Your stomach drop when the dashboard goes black and the rain shows up on the radar. But somewhere inside that dark cab, there is a wire, a pin, a seal, a relay, a ground, a path. And the machine is not asking for the biggest part. It is asking for the right question. Some people heard this story and said a 15-year-old beat a dealership with a meter. That is not exactly right. Lena did not beat anyone. She listened to the machine longer than the invoice did. She found the one place where the truth got small enough to hide. And Cal Whitaker took the money that was supposed to disappear into an unnecessary harness, put it into the hands of the next kid who might learn how to read a schematic before a system teaches them to replace everything. That was the repair that lasted. Not the terminal, not the grease, not even the combine. The real repair was $5,200, moving from fear into skill. And all of it started with one click, one dead dashboard, and a 15-year-old who knew that warm plastic is not a smell you ignore.